You're listening to the Baha'i World News Service.
Now live local support.
kay Baha'i. In this episode, we hear from Dr. Ilya Shodjaee-Zrudlo, exploring how Baha'i moral and spiritual education programs in Canada are enhancing the consciousness of young people to live a more coherent life. He draws on experiences as a collaborator of Baha'i training institutes in Montreal and as a member of Wordswell Association for Community Learning, a Bahá'í-inspired organization in Canada that empowers youth to develop their academic, intellectual, and moral capacities while contributing meaningfully to community transformation. From the Baha'i World News Service, this is Insights from the Field, a podcast series that explores experiences from Baha'i efforts to contribute to social progress, from the grassroots to the international level. Across diverse communities worldwide, a distinctive moral and spiritual educational program known as the Training Institute helps participants develop capacities for service to their societies.
The programs of the Training Institute largely revolve around, you could say, moral education with the aim of spiritual empowerment. They help participants reflect on concepts such as love, sacrifice, detachment, universal education, and really reflect on very profound ideas, their purpose in life and the nature of service. And these different themes find expression then in practical daily life and also in acts of service to one's community. The network of training institutes in Canada was established in the 1990s in order to really respond to that desire of these populations to contribute to the betterment of their communities and the shaping of their societies so that their communities would be places where children can develop certain capacities and powers, where their minds can be nurtured and their hearts. This network of training institutes gathers groups of people of all ages, really, together in small groups, and they look at various principles and teachings from the Baha'i faith, such as the equality of men and women, consultation, universal participation, education. They consider these themes and they try to learn about how to apply them to their communities and the betterment of their immediate surroundings, whether it's a campus of university or a neighborhood or a smaller town, all the different realities across Canada. And there are individuals in every region learning about the improvement of their surroundings, both in its material and spiritual dimensions. So I assist this network of training institutes really with a focus on young people, helping them think about their stage and period of life and the enormous potential that resides in them for social transformation. One of the principles that's very important for these institutes is the principle of learning in action. So beyond study, there's a whole component of service in the community as well. That's part of these different groups that come together to explore concepts. And there's an effort to try to relate these concepts to one's reality. Again, whether it's a campus at university or a neighborhood or a school or whatever it is. And yet we find that young people are very eager to come together to discuss these ideas and to try to make a real difference in their communities. So very central to the Baha'i teachings is this concept of service, and it's tied to the purpose of our lives, really. Through service, we're able to achieve both individual, intellectual and spiritual growth, and also contribute to the betterment of society. So in fact, the training institutes in Canada, also some of them collaborate with Baha'i-inspired agencies that are also thinking about some of these aspects of helping youth live coherent lives. One of these is called Wardwell, which is based in Toronto and also operates in Montreal. And Wardwell also is working closely with these same youth that the Institute is working with, collaborating to try to learn about how, what kinds of capabilities do these young people need in an urban context in North America in order to really become promoters of the well-being of their communities. By attending the programs of the Institute, they develop certain spiritual capacities and capacities directly related to serving their communities. And then Wordswell is also helping them think a little bit about some of these other dimensions of their lives. Provides a mentoring component as well, ensuring that these young people have someone a bit older, wiser, who can maybe help them make some of their decisions and think through some of the aspects of their lives very closely. And that kind of support seems to be very essential for young people, having someone a little bit older who they trust, who's able to really think with them carefully about their decisions and bring spiritual principles to bear on some of their decisions that they're making, so that they don't find themselves just reacting and with poor judgment. So really building this capacity to reflect on spiritual principles such as unity and justice and service and coherence in order to craft a life that really can create a difference in one's community and contribute to its material and spiritual prosperity. We actually spent a lot of time talking with the young people about a vision of their future neighborhood. So we try to imagine it together and sit together. And it really helps them because sometimes, because of comments they hear from others or impressions they get from their parents or neighbors and so on, they think of their community as a place that I have to get out of. Like I have to get out of this neighborhood. And they see it as a place to kind of move on and leave. But then to be able to develop a vision of your community which is spiritually and materially prosperous, what does it look like? What do the schools look like? What do the streets look like? How do these places become places of great beauty? What strengths exist in our community that we can build on in order to really contribute to its transformation? That kind of conversation stimulates a different sort of perspective and helps young people see that, well, maybe it's worth it to try to really see what I can do, and it helps them even maybe orient their studies. Some of them might decide that, well, maybe I should study. I see that there's a need in my community. A lot of the young people don't understand math. Maybe I should become a math teacher, So we've had young people also come to these sorts of conclusions. So we're seeing this now growing movement of young people who are really trying to center service in their lives and make all the decisions, related to their lives around this theme. To give one example, I remember with a group of young people, we were examining the effects of music on us, actually. And we were kind of reflecting on different music actually has a different type of impact on us. And we tried to think about different sorts of ways we would like feelings we would like to experience or sentiments we would like music to contribute to our lives. And we were trying to think, the text helps us reflect on what kinds of music would help you feel solidarity with the oppressed, for example, or what kind of music would help you feel feelings of love for one's community, and so on. So different sorts of things like that. And the young people were very unused to thinking about, music could be uplifting like that, and so on. And we had a very interesting discussion about the content of a lot of music that we were exposed to or listened to. And I remember after the session seeing one of the youth with her looking on her device, and then I was asking her, what are you doing? She said, I'm going through and deleting certain songs that I don't think are really helping me, So I saw that the conversation we had kind of empowered her to be a bit more judicious with her choice of the kind of media she's exposed to in terms of music. The approach of the programs of the Institute generally is not to tell youth, do this, don't do this, and so on, but actually to help them understand the consequences of their actions and also the effect of different forces around them, and to understand really the forces they're interacting with. When you speak to young people, there's of course a diversity of circumstances and contexts and so on, but there are many common themes that come up with their reality. Many of them struggle in the school context, sometimes with various subjects and so on, math and French in my context in Montreal. So school can create certain pressures for them. Sometimes they also have pressures from their parents to perform well. They're often told that, if you don't do well, you won't get a good job, you won't make a lot of money. There's sometimes this sort of economic pressure as they move into their teens. The desirability of getting a job becomes a kind of an important thing. So in the context of the Institute and its activities, there's often space created for young people to explore these themes and try to think about the decisions they're making. One concept which we explore with them, which is very central and important, is the concept of coherence. And again, we draw on this concept of service in that context. The young person has these different aspects of their life. And again, as they move into their teens, their life becomes more complex, with the studies becoming more complex, maybe work coming in the picture, friendships become more complex. So with all that complexity, sometimes their life can be a bit fragmented. I'm dealing with this now, I have to go over here. Do I pay attention to my family or to my work or to my studies or to volunteering in the community or whatever it is? But assisting young people to really reflect on this central notion of service and how service can help us create a coherent life in all its different dimensions. So, trying to serve my family, for example, and contribute to my family will be a way of also ensuring that I do well in school. And if I do well in school, I can better contribute to my family and I can serve better. And if I'm spending time serving my community, I'll also develop certain intellectual capacities and spiritual capacities that'll make me a better son or daughter or cousin or nephew or whatever it is. So as young people are assisted to see these links between these different aspects of life that are sometimes fragmented or placed in opposition to one another, dichotomized, that kind of conversation is really important for young people. So some of our materials help them explore these concepts with their peers and think together. And then they make some adjustments. Some of them actually realize that these different dimensions shouldn't be placed in opposition to one another. And actually that if they really kind of organize their life around service to their community, they're able to meet these different dimensions of their life and fulfill their requirements. So we see young people now moving through the Institute's programs who are dedicating a lot of time to the betterment of their communities. Then you see this young person who, one night a week is gathering with their friends to study certain content that helps develop their language abilities and scientific capacities. Another night of the week is studying with their friends, helping each other with their homework and their subjects. Another night now they're helping their younger peers, children and adolescents, with their school subjects. And then they're also gathering some children to teach them more, having a moral education class with them. And they're also socializing together, spending time. So just, in a matter of a week, doing many, many different things and attending to different aspects of their lives and really thriving in that context. I've been working recently a lot with families of young people, closely consulting with parents. And we've been exploring this idea that, if we want our teenagers, our children to be serving and have a life of service, every member of the family should really be involved, ideally, in serving others. So this has been a topic of conversation among some of the families, how every member of the family can contribute to the betterment of the community in some way. So with the youth group I work with, for example, one of the fathers, he's in information technology and he loves coding and so on. So then some of the youth in my group are very interested in coding. So his wife encouraged him, you should start a coding class for the adolescents in this group. So then once a week he was gathering these young people and they were learning a little bit about coding. And this, the mother was sharing how it's so wonderful that, every member of my family is able to serve. And it's like a good example for my son then, who also is like learning to look at the needs of his community and offer it. So this idea that through service, we really develop more unity as a family. So this has been a theme sometimes among some of the families. Sometimes when all of our attention is poured on our own children only, it reflects a kind of a narrow interest. We want our children to serve others, but because we're only focused on their development, it's not necessarily conducive to them having a vision of a family that serves others, actually. There's much to learn still, but already in the pattern that's being generated at the grassroots in communities, in community after community really across Canada, we see that a pattern can be created and an environment where young people really rise to the occasion and dedicate a great deal of time and effort to the betterment of their communities and whole families really contributing. And in that pattern, you see glimpses really of what our future communities could look like.
You've been listening to Insights from the Field, a podcast series from the Baha'i World News Service. For more podcasts and stories, visit news.bahai.org.